while ago, and you seemed to enjoy it, and I really enjoyed going back and looking at some of the stories that were told to me as a youngling. Ugh, I'm really starting this off awful, I'm sorry. However, I thought I would do another one because there are still so many really good stories out there for me to tell you. I have 3 today because 2 of them are quite long and one of them is very short. It is another one of the kind of mythological creatures, like we had the banshee in the last one. I do recommend you watch the first one before this because there's a little bit of context for one of the stories. It's not that big of a deal, so if you don't want to watch that one, don't feel any pressure because, you know, it's these are just meant to be kind of background stuff. As I said in my last one, they're very much like true crime story style. That's how I'm trying to tell them. Now the third one is the longest one, so I may need to just have a quick look at the notes just in case I am missing anything. Anyway, let's get into our first story, which is called Tir Nanog, which is T-I-R space N-A space N small n big O with a so here's the thing. It is called a fada. And a fada is like the little line above the letter, like in French it's called accent. And I don't know what it's called in any other language, but you know. But in Irish it's called a fada. And basically what a fada does on top of a vowel is it lengthens the letter. So it's Tiernan Og. Anyway, that's what it is. Welcome to my Irish lesson. I'm not here to teach you Irish, I'm here to tell you a story. So, Tir na Og. It is a mystical land. This is one of my favourite stories, by the way. Tir na Og is a mystical land, and it is believed that you have eternal life there, that once you enter Tir na Og, that is the age you stay until you, I don't know, it's forever, you are eternally there. You forever stay the age that you are when you enter. So this story is mainly focused around Oisin. Oisin is O-I-S-I-N. I'm just reading out all the Irish names for you because they're interesting spellings. So Oisin was a warrior who, in a random twist of fate, was from our first video, Fionn McCool, his son. So Oisin is Fionn McCool's son, and he is a warrior in the Fianna, which we talked about in the last video a little bit. And so this starts off just, the Fianna are out there, they're hunting deer for the dinner that night, and they just get back and they're kind of, you know, they have all their hunting done, and they're feeling great, you know, they're feeling accomplished, and they're taking a rest, a well-deserved rest, and they hear a horse galloping up behind them. And so they all look towards it and they see this beautiful white horse, like almost mythical looking. And there's a beautiful young woman on the horse, riding the horse, and her hair is flowing behind her. She looks just perfect. And Fionn McCool, who is the leader of the Fianna, he says, I need to just check who this lady is for a second. So he stops her before she passes and he says, excuse me, who are you and what are you doing here? Maybe in a nicer way, but anyway. She says, my name is Niamh, N-I-A-M-H, Niamh. And Niamh says she is the daughter of the king of Tir na Og, and she's looking for a warrior named Oisin. We know an Oisin. And Fionn McCool is like, why are you looking for Oisin? What could you want with my son Oisin? And she says, I would like to bring Oisin to Tir na Og with me. And Fionn McCool obviously doesn't want to just give his son away. He's like, I don't know about all that. Because when will he come back? Obviously, Fionn McCool had heard of Tir na Og, and he knows it's eternal life, and he's never seen anyone come back from there. So he's thinking, I'm gonna, lose my son if he goes there. So he's kind of protesting it a bit. But he can see that Oisin is immediately goodbyes to the Fianna, who are these warriors, and to his dad, Fionn, and he gets on the back of the horse with Niamh, and they ride all across Ireland, just straight line, up huge mountains and down, across rivers, across lakes, and the horse is just on top of the water, just galloping on top, no problems, and they don't stop for days and days and days. And then they eventually get to at the edge of Ireland on the west, and she just keeps going all the way into the sea, and they're going for another couple of days, and Oisin's getting pretty tired at this point because he hasn't really slept apart from on the back of a horse, and Niamh hasn't slept at all. So they're galloping through the sea, and the rough sea. The west of Ireland is known to be very windy, and so the waves are huge and stormy, and it's just crazy. But they end up, they get to the peak of a really, really tall wave, and Oisin sees this island, and it's like bright, and it's got this huge castle, and it just looks like paradise. There's, lush plants everywhere, and he thinks, oh, this has to be Tir na nÓg. So turns out it is. They go closer and closer, and they dock. Well, they don't dock, they're on a horse, so they get up onto the land, and they get off, and there's a feast there for him because they're all expecting him, so they're all so excited that he's there, and they're so welcoming, and he eats his feast with everybody there, with the king, with Niamh, and obviously they like him because Niamh likes him, and they respect Niamh and the king, and he's able to tell some really, really cool stories about the Fianna and what's going on over in Ireland, because a lot of the people in Tir na nÓg are there forever, and they just kind of live out their lives in Tir na nÓg. And so time seems to go by pretty quick in Tir na nÓg. While he's there, he gets married to Niamh pretty quick because they are so clearly in love, and they get married, and everyone's delighted. There's a huge celebration for it, and after 3 years, Oisin starts to feel a little bit like, I kind of miss home. I'd like to just see my dad and see how the Fianna are doing. It's been 3 years. So Niamh says, okay, I really wouldn't like you to go, but I understand. So I'll give you my horse, this magical, beautiful, amazing white horse that she has. And she says, he'll take you back to Ireland. He'll take you across these waves, across the mountains, and through everything to get to Ireland again. But she says, before you go, I have a very, very important rule that you need to really make sure you don't step on Ireland. You cannot get off the horse, because if your feet or your toe or anything touches the soil, you can't return to Tir na nÓg. And he's a little bit like, oh, okay, that's a kind of a strict rule, but whatever. So he gets on the horse and galloping through the sea as he did to get to Tir na nÓg, and the horse is just taking care of it all. It's like a Tesla, it's just automatically there, and he just, sitting back relaxing. And he gets there and he sees Ireland again, and he is a little bit confused. It looks different. There are bigger buildings and more buildings, and there's really, really nice roads and stuff like that, and he's a bit, how did all this happen in 3 years? So he gets to the land and he asks some of the people he sees up by the shore, and he says, hey, do you know where I can find Fionn McCool and the Fianna? And they look at him a bit like, really? You want to look for Fionn McCool and the Fianna? And they say, we don't really know where they are. And they're kind of laughing a little bit, and he's like, excuse me, why are you laughing at me? So he's searching, because these people were not helpful at all. And on his travels, he sees a group of men trying to lift a rock. So they're trying to get this rock out of the way because they're building a town, and this rock is, it's in the way of where they want to build. And he's pretty strong. He's the son of Fionn McCool, so he's a strong guy. But he knows not to get off the horse, so he said, hey, listen, I'm going to help you, and it'll be great. And he's able to angle the saddle to a place where he's able to then help the men lift the rock. And with his help, they're able to, is like spooked, and it just takes off. It is gone in like the flash of light. It is just run away. And Oisin is a bit disoriented and obviously stressed out because he just fell on the soil of Ireland. He stands up and all the men are asking, "Oh my God, are you okay? Are you okay?" And he's like, "Oh, yeah, I'm fine." But then he realizes, "Oh my God, I can't get back to Tiernanog." And as he's thinking that, he has his hand in front of him, and he can see his hand just starts to get wrinkly, and he can feel his face get wrinkly, and all the men are a bit taken aback. They all stand back and they say, "Oh, you're aging so fast." So the only thing they can do is take him to a priest, and they take him to a priest who is entitled Saint Patrick. He's a famous saint in Ireland. Listen, religion, it is what it is. And Saint Patrick says, yeah, so 3 years in Tiernanog is actually 300 years in Ireland, so you're about 300 right now. So he's 300 years old, and he's furious because he fell off the saddle and he can't go back to Niamh or anyone in Tiernanog, who obviously he's grown close to in the 3 years. And listen, he ages 300 years and dies. And that's it. That's what happens to Tiernanog. It's such a, end. But that's it, he ages after that and he dies right there. Oh, I forgot the little detail that St. Patrick also breaks the news that his dad and all the Fianna are dead because it's been 300 years. So he's the one that breaks that news to him and then tells him, "You're about to die because you're 300. So he really just had a great last few seconds. St. Patrick, am I right? Anyway, that's Tiernanog, which is weirdly one of my favorite stories, even though it's a little bit, oh, okay, he just dies. But I really like the idea of, this eternal land, and it's always been described to me as such a paradise with this white brick castle, and this everyone is just so happy. Anyway, I really like that one. The next story I'm going to tell you is basically the mythical creature-ish thing that we did last time, where I talked a little bit about the banshee. This one is called the Puca. Puca. P-U apostrophe P-U fada, which we talked about, K-A. So Puca is what they are called, and or P-U-C-A, which is another spelling. And basically the word Puca translates from Irish to English as ghost or spirit. So Puca is spirit or ghost. But the Puca are not ghosts and ghouls. They're actually fairies. Again, I talked about how there's a lot of fairies in Irish folklore. They're kind of fairies and kind of weird creaturey things. But they are shapeshifters who can shapeshift into anything they want. And nobody really knows if they're evil or if they are good intentioned, because they've never physically harmed anyone as of records. This is a mythology thing, but as of mythological records, they haven't harmed anybody. So obviously you would assume they're not evil, but they do a lot of mischievous things. They've been known to open farm gates and let animals free and steal water and steal food and things like that. So they're doing mischievous things, but they also do a lot of good. They will get soil ready for planting. They will bring water from the lake into the water purifier, or whatever you call it. They'll do good but also do bad. So it's how you look at it. I suppose if you get a good Puca or a bad Puca, it's up to you. So these guys are shapeshifters, and they can shapeshift into anything, but they're known for looking like a mix between a dog and a goat and a goblin. So just real good looking fellas. But obviously they shapeshift into anything, anything that will make their mischief or help easier. The only thing that when they're shapeshifted, when they're shapeshifted, the only thing that you can tell, the only way you can tell what it is, the only way you can tell it's a Puca, is what I meant to say, is because they have glowing golden eyes. So no matter what they shapeshift into, their eyes will always have like a golden glow to them. So you know that's a Puca. And there's been so many stories told about them that people are terrified of them, even though they have never physically harmed anyone. So I don't really know why people were scared of them in mythological times, but I guess they were. They are known to live in deep lakes in the mountaintops. So they're like underwater creatures as well. They're super weird, and that's who they are, and they just love being who they are. They're known to be in the west of Ireland because they enjoy quieter places, and as I said, no I didn't, did I? Did I tell you the west of Ireland was a bit more rural? Anyway, it is. The west is quite rural compared to the east. It's kind of the more developed, at least it's known to be that way. So yeah, that's the Puca. There's no real story there. They're just, again, like the Banshee. I didn't find an origin. Again, I didn't really look. I'm just on the same website for everything. But yeah, that's the Puca. I want to move on to our final story, which is, it's about cattle, which I know that sounds like not much, but let me tell you, this story is long, it is drawn out, it is full of twists and turns, and I hope you're strapped in and you're ready to go. So the title of this story is The Legend of the Cattle Raid of Cooley. So, the start of our story starts off as such. As we mentioned in the previous one of these, there are 4 provinces of Ireland: Leinster, Munster, Ulster, and Connacht. Our story has Queen Maeve, who is the Queen of Connacht, and she is known to be a fierce warrior, and she is one of the wealthiest people in Ireland. You know, she's just out there kicking people's butts, and she is taking money, not taking money, but she's, you know, she's wealthy, she's a royal. And her dad was the King of Connacht. He was the High King of Ireland, you know, just all like, I'm the High King of Ireland, whatever. And she was a little bit competitive with her dad. So she said, listen, I need to be more wealthy than my dad. So she marries a man called Ailil. And Ailil was a very wealthy man, not from royalty, but obviously she married him, and now he's the King of Connacht. And she then is able to say, look how much more wealth I have than you, Dad, you know, whatever. Now I'm better than you. And that's not enough for her. And she's like, oh, I think I'm going to compete with my husband. So she competes with Ailil and says, listen, I want to see who's more wealthy, because this is sparked by, in bed one night, Ailil says, God, your life has gotten so much better now that I'm in it. And she's like, excuse me, I was warrioring, I was wealthy, I was happy, and now you're going to come in here and tell me that my life is better because of you. It seems like a bit of a toxic relationship between both of them. But, you know, she decided then, let's compare wealth then. And their wealth was pretty similar when they compared it. However, Ailil had one thing over Maeve, and that was a bull. And this bull was powerful. People from all over the world would come and avail of its powers. You know, they would look at it and avail of its powers in some way. I don't know what that means. Don't really want to think about what that means, but you know what? It is what it is. Maybe they, like, the bull makes baby cows, and the baby cows are better. It doesn't matter. This bull was, like, top drawer. Like, he was just the best bull of all time. And so obviously Ailil won because of this bull. And Queen Maeve was was like, not on my watch, Lil. Not on my watch. So she then has a look around Ireland, just a quick, and she hears of a bull who is more powerful than Lil's bull, and he lives up in Ulster. She says, okay, I have to get that bull so that I can be wealthier than my husband. Again, really, really healthy relationship going on. So she sends a messenger to this guy and she says, hey, listen, I would love to be able to take this bull for just a year, that's all. I just want it for a year. And in return, I will give you 100 cattle, a really, really just a beautiful bit of land here in Connacht, and I'll give you a golden chariot. And, you know, the guy who owns the bull says, I need like a couple days to think about it. And he's sitting at home that night and he's thinking, this is not a bad deal, you know. This cow just for, or, you know, this bull for a year. It seems like a pretty civil place. I get some lovely land in Connacht. I could grow some crops there, or I could raise these 100 cattle, make milk, sell it. I could do pretty well from this, and I get a golden chariot. So he's considering it at this point, and however, the messenger that Maeve sent, obviously he was staying in Ulster that night, because going back to Connacht, coming back and back, whatever. So he said, you know, I'm just gonna stay. So he stayed in a bar, and before going to bed, he had a few drinks, maybe a little bit too many drinks, and he said how, you know, why didn't the guy who owned the bull just say yes immediately? Like, what a weak person. And anyway, this led to the local people being angry at him because they respected this man who owned the bull, and so they started a bar fight, and the messenger ended up killing one of the village people. And yeah, that's not really great. He shouldn't be just murdering people in a bar fight. But the guy who owned the bull got word of this, and he said, one of my village people? Absolutely not. So he sent the messenger back with a message to Queen Maeve saying, your messenger killed one of these people. You are not getting the bull. Try again. And the messenger got back. Maeve was furious because she knew this was her only chance to be wealthier than her husband. So she says, first of all, messenger, get out. Get out right now. Leave. Thank you. And she is so angry. So she decides, I am going to start a war. And she gathers all the men around Ireland, not every single person, but she gathers thousands and thousands of warriors, because she just wants to go over there and look tough so that she can, you know, take the bull by force, because what is this one guy gonna do? But apparently in Ireland, word spreads fast, because this guy gets word of it again, and he says, she's gonna try and steal the bull. Not on my watch. So then he gathers the people from Ulster, and they all then are ready for Maeve. There's a couple of fights, but nothing really happens, you know, it kind of dwindles, and Maeve retreats, and they try to think of a different strategy because they're not getting anywhere. The men are a bit too afraid to fight each other. But so a fortune teller one day comes up to Maeve. She knocks on the door. Maeve answers, and the fortune teller says, I had a prediction. And Maeve is very superstitious, so she says, come on in, tell me what you see. And she said, I see a warrior, a really, really powerful warrior in Ulster, and he's gonna help Ulster fight against you, and you're gonna lose if you fight against him. So Maeve then says, I don't know. So she doesn't do anything for a while. She kind of just lets it settle a little bit, and she then sends a message to this warrior who is named Cooley, another popular, famous he's a 17-year-old warrior, you know, he's just out here killing people left and right, he's really powerful, just like all of them. And she sends people in because after a while, nothing happens, you know, he's not out there threatening her, so she says, just go in, let's take him down, and we'll take the cattle, or we'll take the bull, and come back here, and then I'll be more rich. So, very, very blatantly, kind of blasé, just throws everyone in. And the first day they get there, Cuchulainn kills 300 men. So she's a little bit like, oh, come back, come back, come back. Maybe we shouldn't do this. So she ends up sending Cuchulainn a message. And she says, hey, I will give you whatever wealth you need if you join my side. And Cuchulainn says, no, I don't want to. I'd rather fight for Ulster. She gets angry and she sends thousands more men, and over the next couple of weeks, and he kills them, all of them, with ease. And so she says, okay, I've got to re-strategize. So Cuchulainn ends up sending her a message to say, how about you send me one a day, and I'll stop killing all these men, because I don't want to kill all these men, but I'm, you know, defending myself. So she says, okay, that's fine, I'll send one a day. But she's thinking in her mind, I'll send one a day, but that gives me time to find somebody who's just as powerful as Cuchulainn. Oh yeah. So I need to take a little side step just for something that comes up later on. There is something called the Pangs of Ulster. The Pangs of Ulster are a curse put on all men of Ulster by a goddess, an ancient goddess of Ireland, to make all men 5 days of the year, 5 days continuously, feel the pain of labour. 5 days, she cursed them all. Don't know what the behind of the background of that is, but that becomes relevant a little bit later on. So, the Pangs of Ulster is what that is called, and it doesn't really sound that fun. But anyway, I just thought I'd add that in now because it will become important in a little bit. So Maeve is sending these warriors day by day, and they're all coming back. No, they're not coming back because Cuchulainn is, you know, killing them. And she is, while sending these expendable men, she is looking for someone who can match Cuchulainn's strength. And she finds that he has a stepdad, excuse me. And the stepdad is called to Maeve and says, you want to fight your son-in-law or stepson, there we go. I'll give you all the wealth in the world. So he says, alright, okay, I'm gonna do it. Greedy. He goes in and Cuchulainn says, I'm not gonna fight you. And he sends him back. And so, again, Maeve goes back to the drawing board, sending just men, just disposable men, like a really, really good person. Maeve then finds out that Cuchulainn has a stepbrother called Ferdia. Ferdia is his stepbrother's name. And she asks him, listen, I'll give you all the wealth of the usual speech. And he says, no way, that's my stepbrother, I would never. And, you know, she's persistent. She's like, listen, I got all the wealth that you need. You know, I really want this cow. And he decides, you know what? Because she's been telling him this through messengers. And she keeps going. So he says, I'm just going to go. I'm going to go there. I'm going to confront her and say, leave me alone. I'm not going to fight my stepbrother. He gets there. He's all ready to just be aggressively like, no, stop it. Stop. And when he gets there, he just smells this beautiful smell. And they let him in. And she's prepared a feast for him. And he sees that there's a beautiful young woman sitting beside Maeve. And this is Maeve's daughter. And so they encourage Ferdia to drink. And drink. And he drinks and he gets drunk. And then when he's drunk, Maeve says, listen, I will allow you to have my daughter's hand in marriage if you fight for Connacht against Ulster. And he says, okay. So he agrees because he's so in love at this point. After a couple of drinks, he's in love, and now he is permanently drunk in love. He's not drunk anymore, but he's just really, really in love with Maeve's daughter. So the next day, he goes off to fight Cuchulainn, and Cuchulainn can see that this isn't going to be a back down, go home kind of fight, because Ferdia wants to marry Maeve's daughter. And they begin to fight. Now, Ferdia's strength is pretty good. He's almost matching Cuchulainn. They both have a really, really special weapon. Well, Cuchulainn has a special weapon. It's a powerful spear given to him by an ancient Irish queen, and Ferdia has ancient armor given to him by this same queen, who taught them both how to fight, so they know how to fight each other because they were both taught how to fight. This battle, obviously, they're quite well matched, so it goes on for a number of days, and interestingly enough, it starts the day that the Pangs of Ulster begins. And as we know, the Pangs of Ulster is where all men in Ulster feel like they're in labour for 5 days straight. So all these men are like in pain, and people are learning of this huge fight, and it's lasting a long time. So the more it goes on, the more people are there to view it. And on day 5, they are both exhausted. Cuchulainn is a little bit more exhausted than Ferdia because he's a bit older. Keep in mind, it's like 17. It doesn't say what age Ferdia is, but I assume like 15 or something. So Ferdia, as the younger brother, is not as tired and uses up his strength, and he stabs Cuchulainn, and Cuchulainn falls to the ground, and the crowd are like, oh, this is the end. This is the fight over. But Cuchulainn, with the last of his strength before he's finished off by his stepbrother, takes his really, really powerful spear, and he throws it with all of his strength into Ferdia's chest, who dies immediately. And so the battle is over. Basically, while this 5th day was going on and the whole of Ireland was distracted, Maeve goes in and she steals the bull. But as we know, the Pangs of Ulster began on the first day of the fight, and they last 5 days, and this fight also lasted 5 days. So all the men were getting over the Pangs of Ulster, and now Maeve was trapped in Ulster because she was surrounded by, thousands of warriors who were no longer experiencing labour. So she's trapped there, and she calls upon her army because they let her, they're not just going to surround her and kill her. And this huge fight goes on between the Connacht army and the Ulster army. Keep in mind, obviously, the Ulster army is a little bit bigger because the Connacht army was pretty ruined by Cuchulainn. But lucky for Maeve, Cuchulainn is resting and obviously really, really injured from the fight with his stepbrother, so he's not actually in the fight. But Maeve is in the fight. She's kicking butt. As I said, she's a great warrior, and she finds an opportunity to escape. So she lets the battles continue, and eventually Ulster overtakes Connacht and wins, but Maeve is already out of there. So she's back in Connacht, back in the kingdom, and the bull is back in the kingdom too. So she has this powerful bull, and her husband Ailil has this powerful bull, because if you forgot, that's what the story's about. It's about her getting the cattle, or her getting the bull, so that she could be more wealthy than her husband. And they schedule a fight. They schedule a fight between the bulls, and they say, whichever bull comes out on top, the other one will be the wealthiest in Ireland. So they schedule the fight, and this fight begins. And to cut to the chase, because there's nothing else to say, these bulls fight and fight and fight, and they're so powerful. But eventually, Maeve's bull wins, and Ailill's is defeated. And there's a huge celebration for Maeve, and she's parading around and, having a great time because she's now the richest person in Ireland because she's inherited all of her husband's wealth, and she now has the bull, and she's feeling just real great about herself. And that's the end. That's the end of the story. I always feel like there's no message, which I did say in the last one, but this one particularly was like, it was there, it was building up to give you a message of like, if her bull had died, all of this would have been for nothing. And it's teaching you that maybe, greed isn't the option. But no. No. Sorry. Her bull wins. Thank you. Good night. That's it. Over. Anyway, those are my 3 Irish legends. I was going to do 4 until I started reading the cattle one, and I was like, oh, this is going on forever. So those are my 3 stories. I really hope you enjoyed them. I love reading these. I think they're so fun and interesting. So I'm not sure how many longer, interesting ones are left. I'm sure there is some. If you would like more, let me know. And I will see you next time.